There's so many great moments in NBA history, so many defining moments. But then there's a category above that of legendary and iconic moments. Moments that no NBA fan will forget. Moments that have made the league what it is today. These moments have gone down in history as benchmarks for what greatness really is. So these 10 moments are the most iconic in NBA history. There's no way that this list is going to be 100% accurate because a lot of things are based on opinion, and it's just hard to judge if one moment is better than another. So if you disagree with anything on this list, that's probably the reasoning. I made a video of the 10 most iconic in-game moments, so these moments are bigger than a specific play in a specific game, whether it's an entire great game or an entire season. So with that being said, let's get started with thanking the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek, the best place anywhere to get tickets to sport events, concerts, Broadway shows, and many, many more. They've become the best by aggregating tickets from all over the web to make buying simple and to find you the best deal. But not only that, they score each deal to let you know how good it is. Green's good and red's bad. SeatGeek even shows you a view from your seat inside the arena. So definitely go check it out by using the link in the description, and then use my code SWEAT with 2 T's for $20 off your first order. Alright, now we can get started with number 10. The Bulls and the Warriors record-setting seasons. In the 1995 and 96 season, Jordan's first full season after retiring and returning from baseball, he silenced any doubters that thought he wasn't the same player when he led his Bulls to finish with a 72-10 record, the best the league had ever seen at that point. It was a historic mark that a lot of people thought would never be broken. To lose only 10 games out of 82 was insane. It had always been an iconic mark in NBA history. But in the 2015 and 16 season, it was surprisingly passed by the Golden State Warriors, which is why they share number 10 on this list, for going 73-9 in a season. It was so recent, so it's still fresh in all of our minds, but it was crazy to see how important each one of their games were late in the season because they were cutting it so close to the record. Teams usually find themselves fighting for a playoff spot, but the Warriors were fighting to see if they can keep single-digit losses. It's always tough to see a nostalgic record go, but the fact that the Warriors didn't win the championship that year, and the Bulls did, makes it feel that the Warriors might hold the official record, but the Bulls still had the best season ever. Number 9. The 2000 Dunk Contest. It's pretty hard to make it through a dunk contest, or an NBA season, or a greatest moments video without some mention of the 2000 Dunk Contest, or otherwise known as the Vince Carter Show, between Larry Hughes, Tracy McGrady, Steve Francis, Vince Carter, Jerry Stackhouse, and Ricky Davis. Steve and Tracy had some great dunks, but they were nothing compared to Vince's elbow dunk, the between the legs dunk, and of course, the 360 windmill. All of these dunks had never been done in the contest before, and to this day, 18 years later, this contest is one of the greatest in history. And you know, seeing Donovan Mitchell attempt the 360 windmill in tribute to Vince Carter in this year's contest lets you really appreciate just how great Vince's actually was. Number 8. Wilts' 100-point game and Kobe's 81-point game. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game will always be one of the most legendary performances in NBA history, even though there's no video evidence and only about 4,000 people actually saw it happen. Wilt was one of the most dominant players in NBA history, and you gotta be to have a 100-point game, especially without the use of 3-pointers. I really don't see anyone ever breaking this record, but with guys like Klay Thompson scoring 37 and a quarter, and then Devin Booker scoring 70 at 21 years old, anything's possible. And along with it being one of the greatest games ever, it also created one of the most popular and iconic pictures in NBA history. And then for the longest time, nobody ever thought anyone would ever come close to the 100-point game again, until Kobe Bryant did it in 2005, scoring 81 on the Raptors. There's always a few 50-point games every season, and on a rare occasion a 60-point game, but then barely ever is there a 70-point game. In fact, there's only been 4 70-point games not by Wilt Chamberlain in NBA history. So Kobe's 81 will always be remembered as great and iconic, especially because this was the first time anyone actually got to witness 81 points on a live televised game, where you can actually go back and watch the footage. The crazy thing is, he really could have had 2 games in the 80s. Because a few weeks before this was when he had the 62 3/4, before not playing in the 4th. Phil Jackson asked him, "Do you want to play in the 4th to get 70? Kobe's reply was, "Nah, I'll get it another time." And then a few weeks later, he drops 81. Number 7. Michael Jordan's career. Whether it was the first three-peat, the second three-peat, the flu game, or the Father's Day game, there's just too many to pick from and then rank which one was better than the other. I mean, the first three-peat solidified Mike as an all-time great, the comeback showed he still had it, and then the second three-peat made him legendary. And the flu game and the Father's Day game were insane moments within the two three-peats. I mean, these are all iconic moments inside of the great career of Michael Jordan, so instead of picking one, I just included all of these for number 7. Number 6. Bill Russell builds a dynasty. The Lakers have won the second most NBA championships in its history, and they did it through the string of legendary players they've had throughout the years with guys like Jerry West, James Worthy, Kobe and Shaq, Magic Johnson, Elgin Baylor, and a lot more. But the Celtics have had the most ever championships, with over half of them coming from the dominance of one man and the team that he led, Bill Russell. And of course, the Celtics have had a history of legendary players as well: Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, John Havlicek, Bob Cousy, and a lot more too. But no one on the Lakers or the Celtics, or any team for that matter, dominated and created a dynasty the way Bill Russell did, winning 11 NBA championships in 13 seasons and 8 straight at one point. That's more rings than the man has fingers. But seriously, think about that. A guy like Steph Curry would have to win a championship every year until 2026 just to tie Bill's 8 straight. And then he'd have to win 2 more on top of that to tie his 11 championships. But by that point he'd be 39. So Bill's one of the greatest all time, and if blocks were actually recorded back then, I'm sure he'd have a ton of more records than he does right now. In the legendary battles between Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, Wilt was always the one with the better stats, but Bill was the one that won the championships. The dominance that Bill Russell and his Celtics team had over the NBA in the 60s is something that'll probably never be duplicated. I mean, the closest we've seen to his 8 straight was Jordan's 6 and 8 years while being retired for 2 of them. And without Russell's dominance, the Celtics wouldn't be the most winning team in basketball, they'd just be another above average team with 6 NBA championships overall. Number 5. The battle between Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. If you look back at all of the NBA dunk contests, there's only a few that stand out. The Vince Carter one I mentioned earlier, the time Spud Webb one, the 2016 Levine and Gordon contest that I think was the best ever. But then you have the battle in the 1988 dunk contest that came down to Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. The finals in that contest was between 2 of the greatest dunkers of all time and produced the iconic moment of Michael Jordan dunking from the free throw line in another one of the most popular pictures in NBA history. The contest was so intense that it came down to Jordan's final dunk, and he needed a 49 to win it all. So he did what he knew would get him a perfect score, and that was to dunk from the free throw line. And it worked. Even though Dr. J was the first to do it back in the ABA, MJ took it to another level when he brought it to the NBA. He added more style to it, sticking his tongue out and double clutching it. It's been imitated since, but never duplicated. And whether the results of that contest were legitimate or not is a different story. Number 4. Willis Reed inspires the Knicks. In 1970, the finals took place between the Los Angeles Lakers, led by Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Elgin Baylor, facing off against the New York Knicks, led by Walt Frazier, Willis Reed, and Dave DeBusschere. The series was intense, and by the end of Game 4, the series was tied 2-2. Toward the end of Game 5, with the Knicks in the lead, Willis Reed went down with a torn muscle in his leg. He left the game, but the Knicks held on and managed to secure the win. But Game 6 was a different story, because without their starting center, the Knicks got dominated when Wilt Chamberlain went off for 45 points and 27 rebounds, tying the series 3-3. So things weren't looking good at all for New York going into Game 7, with still no center. Before the game, the team went out for warm-ups, while Reed stayed behind to watch the game. But then he sat there alone, and he thought to himself that this game was for the championship, and he didn't want to look back and have any regrets 20 years later. So he took an injection in his leg to make the pain go away, and right before tip-off he limped out to the court. When fans spotted him, the crowd roared. And then when the Lakers saw him walking onto the court, they all stopped warming up and stared. And it was at that moment that when Walt Frazier saw that happen, he knew that the Knicks had a chance to win that night. So with a torn muscle on his leg, Willis Reed would score the first 2 baskets in the game, and that would be enough to inspire his team to go on and win Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and the Knicks' first NBA championship. Walt Frazier had an all-time great performance with 36 points and 19 assists that game. Number 3. Magic fills in at center. This one starts out really similar to number 4, and here's why. The Lakers with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were playing the 76ers, who were being led by Julius Erving in the 1980 finals. After game 4, the series was tied 2-2, and just like Willis Reed, Kareem went down in game 5 because he sprained his ankle. Even though he went down though, the Lakers still pulled out the win that game, so they were up 3-2. But when they left for game 6 in Philly, Kareem didn't travel with the team. And this was when the rookie Magic Johnson came out as the true leader he is. He sat in Kareem's seat on the plane and told his teammates that we're going to be just fine without him. So he would not only take his seat on the plane, but he would take his spot on the opening tip-off, starting the game at a center. The 6'9" Magic Johnson spent the rest of the game playing every position at least once throughout the game. He showed how he was the most versatile player in the league at the time and finished the game with 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists, 123-107, and ultimately putting away the 1980 finals without Kareem, showing he was the guy that was meant to be the leader of the Los Angeles Lakers after Kareem would officially retire. Number 2, the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird rivalry. Now I know this isn't exactly a moment, but if you go back and look at the time period as a whole, you can say it counts. But there's been so many great rivalries in NBA history, but there's no arguing that this one between Magic and Bird is the best the league has ever seen. It started back in 1979 when they played each other in the NCAA National Championship game, and then it would continue on for the rest of their NBA careers. Either the Lakers or the Celtics played in the NBA Finals every single year of the entire 1980s, with Magic and Bird playing against each other 3 of those times. The rivalry had its own documentary, and both Magic and Bird were just as competitive and intense about the rivalry. Magic said when he got his new schedule for the new season, he'd grab it right away and circle the 2 games against Boston, and to him, it was those 2 and then the other 80. And Bird said the first thing he would do every single morning was look up the box scores to see what Magic Johnson did the night before. The rivalry between the 2 men was one that some people say saved the NBA, because the league had just gone through a decade of it losing interest and ratings were getting lower. But Magic and Bird brought both categories to all-time highs, which is one of the many things that makes this an all-time great moment in league history. And number 1, the decision and the return. Whether you liked it or not, LeBron James' decision will go down as one of the most infamous moments in NBA history. It stands out as him turning his back on his hometown team without telling anyone he was leaving and making the Cavaliers wait until the live TV broadcast to figure out what they needed to do with their franchise, which was one of the reasons they were so bad until he'd come back. But not only that, when you'd think things couldn't get any worse, it was followed up by an even more infamous moment of him counting how many rings he'd win with the Miami Heat. And this was a moment that was instantly hated on by a lot of the basketball community, unless you were a LeBron or Miami Heat fan. But even if you hated LeBron's decision, it led to an all-time iconic moment in NBA history, which was after he left his hometown team and learned how to win with the Miami Heat, he finally came back 4 long years later and promised to finally bring the Cavaliers an NBA championship. The day he decided to come back, the entire day on SportsCenter was dedicated to talking about LeBron's return home. And what makes this an iconic moment was when he actually brought Cleveland their championship. He fell on the court in tears because he had just accomplished the goal he had been working his entire career for, his entire life for. The celebration in the city was one of the biggest too, with so many of the streets filled with Cavaliers fans everywhere. And those were the league's 10 greatest moments that I came up with. If there's any I might have missed that you think should have been on this list, definitely comment down below. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next video.